The laughter echoed through the steel corridors of Terminus Academy like a disease, infectious and cruel. Kira Voss stood at the security checkpoint, her jaw tight, her fingers curled into fists at her sides. The scanner blinked red 3 times before finally, reluctantly, flashing green. Behind her, a cluster of third-year cadets snickered, their voices dripping with mock sympathy. "Did you see that?" "System almost rejected her completely," one of them said. A tall Arcturian named Zevin with silver skin that shimmered under the harsh lighting. "Probably glitched." "No way someone from the outer colonies has clearance for anything beyond janitorial duty," another added. A human boy with perfectly styled hair and a uniform so crisp it looked spray-painted on. Kira didn't turn around. She'd learned that lesson years ago. Turning around only gave them satisfaction, and she'd be damned before she gave these spoiled core world brats one more second of her attention. Her boots clicked against the polished floor as she walked forward, shoulders squared, spine straight. She'd survived worse than verbal jabs from entitled academy washouts who thought their family names meant something. The academy itself was a monument to excess. Gleaming white walls, holographic displays that shifted between star charts and propaganda footage of the Galactic Coalition's greatest victories. Everything here screamed money, privilege, and a future already bought and paid for. Kira had clawed her way here on merit alone, through entrance exams that left her sleeping 4 hours a night for 6 months, through interviews where she'd been asked why someone from a barely charted mining colony thought she belonged among the elite. She'd answered simply, "Because I'm better than them," and she was. Her test scores proved it. Her physical evaluations proved it. But none of that mattered when your home planet wasn't listed in the civilized sectors. When your last name didn't ring bells in the halls of power. When you showed up wearing second-hand gear because new equipment cost more than your family made in a year. The corridor opened into the main atrium, a massive space with a transparent dome overhead that showed the starfield beyond. Ships came and went from the orbital platform, sleek vessels that looked more like art installations than military craft. Kira had arrived on a cargo hauler that smelled like recycled air and desperation. "Voss." The voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. She stopped, turned. Commander Braxis stood near one of the information terminals, his uniform decorated with enough medals to stop small arms fire. He was old guard military, the kind who'd earned his rank through blood rather than bureaucracy. Rumor said he'd lost his entire squad on some classified operation and walked out alone. "Sir," Kira responded, snapping to attention. Braxis looked her over with eyes that missed nothing. "You're scheduled for specialized training. Hangar Bay 7. Report in 20 minutes. Kira blinked. Specialized training wasn't part of the standard curriculum. "Sir, I wasn't informed of any schedule changes." "You are now. Don't be late." He turned and walked away, leaving her standing there with a dozen questions and 0 answers. Behind her, the laughter started again. Zevin's voice carried across the atrium. "Specialized training? Is that what they call remedial now?" Kira's fingers twitched. She imagined the satisfying crunch his nose would make. Instead, she checked her wrist terminal, noted the time, and headed toward the hangar bays. The route took her through sections of the academy she'd never accessed before. The corridors became narrower, more utilitarian. The polished white gave way to gunmetal gray. Fewer windows, more security checkpoints. Each one scanned her credentials with increasing skepticism before allowing her through. At the 7th checkpoint, the scanner held on her ID for a full 10 seconds. The guard, a grizzled woman with cybernetic eyes, stared at her display with something that might have been surprise. "Problem?" Kira asked. The guard shook her head slowly. "No problem. Proceed." Hangar Bay 7 sat at the end of a long corridor that felt less like academy territory and more like something military. Classified military. The kind of place where questions weren't welcomed and answers weren't given. The door was massive, reinforced steel with locking mechanisms that looked designed to keep something in rather than keep people out. Kira approached the access panel. It was different from the others she'd encountered. Older, more complex. The kind of system that predated the sleek, user-friendly interfaces the Academy preferred. She pressed her hand against the scanner. The panel lit up, running through verification protocols with mechanical precision. Red lights flickered, yellow, then green. But instead of the simple confirmation chime she expected, a voice spoke. Cold, synthetic, utterly devoid of emotion. Identity confirmed. Kira Voss. Origin Hellscape 7. Clearance verified. There was a pause. Mechanical gears shifted behind the door. Then the voice spoke again, and this time there was something different in its tone. Not quite surprise, but close. Access level. Deathworld. The locks disengaged with a sound like thunder. The door, easily 5 tons of reinforced alloy, began to slide open. Beyond it, darkness waited. Not the comfortable darkness of a powered-down room, but the kind of darkness that felt alive, watchful, hungry. Kira stood frozen. Deathworld. The term rattled around her skull like a bullet in an empty chamber. She knew what it meant. Everyone in the galaxy knew what it meant. Deathworlds were planets where evolution had gone absolutely insane. Places where the gravity crushed bones, where the atmosphere was toxic, where every single life form from the smallest microbe to the largest predator existed in a state of constant warfare. They were rare, scattered throughout the galaxy like cosmic accidents. The Coalition had catalogued maybe 20 of them. Most were quarantined, studied from orbit, avoided at all costs, and according to the system, she had clearance for them. The voice spoke one more time. "Welcome home, Cadet Voss." Footsteps behind her. Multiple sets. Kira turned to see Zevin and his crew of admirers approaching. Smug expressions plastered across their faces. They must have followed her, thinking they'd catch her being denied access. Humiliate her one more time. Zevin opened his mouth to say something clever. Then he saw the open door, the darkness beyond, the still glowing access panel that displayed words he couldn't quite process. His smile died like a star going supernova in reverse. "What?" he managed, his voice barely a whisper. "What is that?" Kira looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the fear creeping into his expression. Saw the way his friends had taken a step back. And for the first time since arriving at this academy, since enduring months of mockery and condescension, she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "That," she said softly, "is above your clearance level." She turned back to the darkness and walked forward. The door began closing behind her, sealing shut with the finality of a tomb. The last thing she heard from the corridor was Zevin's voice, high and panicked, demanding answers from someone, anyone. Then silence, complete, absolute. Lights flickered on automatically, revealing a space that made every other part of the academy look like a child's playroom. This was a hangar, yes, but it was wrong. The ships weren't sleek Coalition vessels. They were brutal things, all armor plating and weapon systems, designed for survival rather than elegance. The walls were scarred, marked with impacts and burns. Training equipment lined the far side. Not the safe, regulated gear the regular cadets used. This looked like it had been pulled from active war zones, and standing in the center of it all was a figure Kira didn't recognize. Tall, muscular, covered in scars that told stories of violence survived, and lessons learned the hardest way possible. The woman's eyes locked onto Kira with the focus of a predator sizing up potential prey. "You're late," the woman said. Her voice was gravel and smoke. "But I'll forgive it this once. Takes time to adjust when you realize everything you've been told is a lie." Kira found her voice. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. It was the kind of smile that had probably terrified enemy combatants across a dozen star systems. "Commander Thane. And I'm the one who's going to teach you what being from a Deathworld really means." She gestured at the brutal-looking equipment surrounding them. "These soft-core world children think they're preparing for war. They're playing pretend. You've been preparing for war since the day you were born." She walked closer, circling Kira like a shark. "Your planet wasn't a mining colony. That's the cover story. The lie your parents were paid to maintain. Hellscape 7 is classified. Quarantined. A world where gravity is 0.8 higher than standard. Where the atmosphere has trace toxins that would hospitalize anyone not adapted. Where the local wildlife includes apex predators that hunt in packs and never, ever stop." Kira's mind reeled. Memories clicked into place like weapon components being assembled. The way her family had always been stronger than other colonists. Faster. The way injuries that should have hospitalized her had healed in days. The constant warnings to never talk about home, to keep their heads down, to lie on every official form about where they were really from. Thane stopped circling. "The Coalition has a program, a very secret program. They find Deathworld populations and they monitor them. Wait for the ones who show exceptional promise. Then they bring them here, hide them among the regular cadets, and watch. See who breaks. See who thrives." "Why?" Kira demanded. "Because when the real war comes," Thane said Q. Kira caught the tablet, looked at the screen. Training schedules that made her previous coursework look like kindergarten. Combat scenarios. Survival situations. And at the bottom, a single line that made her blood run cold and hot simultaneously. Designation: Deathworld Combat Specialist. Expected survival rate: 12%. She looked up at Commander Thane, who was watching her with something that might have been respect. "Still want to be here, Cadet?" Kira thought about Zevin and his crew, thought about every snide comment, every mocking laugh, every assumption that she didn't belong, thought about her family back on Hellscape 7, living lies to keep her safe, and she thought about that voice in the corridor when she'd walked away, the fear in it. Her smile returned. Sharp, dangerous, real, absolutely. 6 months changed everything. Kira Voss stood in the observation deck overlooking the main training arena, watching the regular cadets run their exercises. From this height, they looked like insects, scurrying through obstacle courses designed to challenge them without actually risking injury. Safety protocols everywhere, padded surfaces, medical teams on standby, instructors who stopped the simulation the moment someone twisted an ankle. She'd stopped finding it funny around month 3. Now it just made her tired. Pathetic, isn't it? Commander Thane appeared beside her, arms crossed, expression carved from granite. They think they're warriors. They're playing dress-up. Kira didn't respond. She'd learned that Thane's observations weren't questions requiring answers. They were statements of fact, delivered with the casual brutality of someone who'd seen too much combat to bother with politeness. Her body had changed in 6 months. Always lean, always strong, but now she carried muscle like armor. Scars decorated her arms, her shoulders, her back. Each one a lesson learned in Hangar Bay 7, where the training didn't stop when you bled and passing out was just an excuse to start over. She'd broken 3 ribs, dislocated her shoulder twice, and spent more nights sleeping on medical tables than in her assigned quarters. And she'd never felt more alive. "We have a situation," Thane said, pulling up a holographic display. 4 days ago, a Coalition research station went silent. Deep space. Sector 9. They were studying xenobiology samples from unclassified worlds. Kira studied the data. "What kind of samples?" "The hungry kind." Thane swiped through images. Creatures that looked like nightmares given physical form. Claws, teeth, exoskeletons that could probably stop small arms fire. Station had containment protocols. Military grade. Something broke them all simultaneously. Sabotage? Unknown. What is known is that there are 17 researchers trapped in a safe room with maybe 48 hours of life support remaining. The station's automated defenses are offline. Local predators are loose and hunting, and High Command needs someone to go in and extract survivors. Kira raised an eyebrow. "Send in a full Marine unit." "Why are you telling me?" Thane's smile was sharp enough to cut diamonds. "Because the station's environmental controls are damaged. Gravity is fluctuating between 0.6 and 1.4 standard. Atmosphere is compromised with toxins. Temperature swings from freezing to boiling. And the local predators are from a world that makes Hellscape 7 look like a vacation resort." Understanding dawned. "You want Deathworld specialists. I want you. This is your final exam, Cadet Voss. Pass, and you graduate with honors. Fail, and well." Thane's expression didn't change. "We'll ship your body home in a box and tell your family you died in a training accident." 6 months ago, that statement would have terrified Kira. Now she just calculated odds, ran through equipment needs, considered tactical approaches. Commander Thane had beaten the fear out of her and replaced it with something far more dangerous. Competence. "When do I leave?" 4 hours. You'll have a team. 3 others. All Deathworld operatives like yourself. Never worked together before. You'll have the flight time to figure out cohesion or die trying. Thane handed her a data chip. "Personnel files. Memorize them. Equipment manifest is already loaded in your quarters." Questions? Kira had 1,000 questions. She asked the only one that mattered. "Why now? Why not wait until I've finished the full program?" For the first time in 6 months, Commander Thane's expression softened. Just slightly. Just enough to remind Kira that underneath the scarred exterior was someone who'd once been young and terrified too. "Because the real war I told you about? It's not coming anymore, Voss. It's here. We've been detecting incursions. Ships that don't match any known signatures. Attacks on outer colonies that look random but follow patterns. Something is probing our defenses, testing our response times." She leaned closer. "The Coalition is scared. Terrified, actually. And when politicians get terrified, they remember that humanity survived on Deathworlds long before we reached the stars. They remember that evolution made us into something other species fear." She pulled up another image. A star chart with red markers scattered across it like blood spatter. 18 colonies have gone dark in the last 2 months. No survivors. No evidence. Just silence. Whatever is coming, it's not interested in negotiation or diplomacy. And when it arrives in force, the Coalition is going to need soldiers who understand survival at the most fundamental level. Thane shut down the display. "So yes, this is your final exam. But it's also your audition for something bigger. Perform well, and you'll be part of the first line of defense when everything goes to hell." Fail, and you were never what we needed anyway. She walked away, pausing at the door. Oh, and Voss? One of your team members is Zevin. He washed out of regular training last month. Turns out his family bought his way into the academy but couldn't buy him actual skill. Command gave him a choice. Leave in disgrace or volunteer for Deathworld evaluation. Kira felt her smile return. That sharp, dangerous expression that had become her default over 6 months of brutal training. He chose evaluation? His father chose for him. Something about family honor and not embarrassing the bloodline. Thane's laugh was dark. He's your demolitions expert. Try to keep him alive. Or don't. Either way, mission success is the priority. Then she was gone, leaving Kira alone with her thoughts and the data chip burning a hole in her pocket. 4 hours later, Kira stood in the hangar bay she'd first entered 6 months ago. It felt different now. Familiar. The brutal ships no longer looked wrong. They looked practical. Built for purpose rather than appearance. The kind of vessels that got you home alive instead of looking good on recruitment posters. Her team waited by the designated transport. 3 figures, each carrying themselves with the unique tension of people who'd survived things that should have killed them. The first was a woman, shorter than Kira but built like a tank, muscles on muscles, dark skin covered in tribal markings that probably had significance Kira didn't understand. Her file said her name was Nessa, from a world called Titan's Grave, where the predators hunted by sound, and the gravity made every step feel like carrying a corpse. The second was a man who looked like he'd been assembled from spare parts. Cybernetic implants ran up his arms, across his chest, probably deeper than visible. His file identified him as Rake, from a frozen hell where the cold killed in minutes, and the indigenous life forms ate metal for sustenance. And the third was Zevin. He looked different. 6 months ago, he'd been polished, arrogant, comfortable in his privilege. Now he looked haunted, thin. His uniform hung loose on a frame that had lost weight. His eyes, once mocking, now darted around like prey animals watching for predators. When he saw Kira, something complicated crossed his face. Shame, fear, recognition. Voss, he managed. His voice cracked slightly. Kira walked past him without responding, heading straight for Nessa and Rake. I'm team lead for this operation. We have a 4-hour flight to get coordinated. Equipment check in 30 minutes. I want full diagnostic on all gear. Personal weapons, environmental suits, emergency supplies, everything. Nessa nodded. Rake grunted acknowledgement. Zevin just stared. That includes you, demolitions, Kira said without looking at him. If your charges malfunction because you didn't check them properly, I'll leave you behind to explain it to whatever's hunting us. She meant every word. The flight was tense, not because of enemy action, but because trust had to be built from nothing. Nessa was professional, experienced, the kind of soldier who communicated inefficient sentences and wasted no energy on unnecessary conversation. Rake was similar, though his cybernetics gave him an edge in technical matters. He could interface directly with systems, pulling data faster than manual operation allowed. Zevin was a liability. He tried apologizing an hour into the flight. Started with a speech about not understanding, about learning hard lessons, about wanting to prove himself. Kira cut him off with a hand gesture. I don't care about your redemption arc, she said flatly. I care about mission success. You're here because you have skills we need. Use them. Don't make me regret trusting you with explosives. He shut up after that. Station schematics. The facility was built into an asteroid, multiple levels carved into rock. The safe room where survivors were trapped sat at the station's core. Between the docking bay and that core were 4 levels of compromised corridors, damaged environmental systems, and unknown numbers of hostile xenobiological specimens. Gravity will be unpredictable, Kira explained, highlighting problem areas. Environmental suits will compensate, but expect disorientation. The creatures loosen their hunt by thermal signature and movement. That means we go cold protocol. Cold protocol meant reducing their suit temperature to match ambient environment. Uncomfortable, exhausting, but it would make them harder to track. Rake, you're on navigation and tech. Keep us off damaged sections and map safe routes back. Nessa, you're on point. Close quarters combat is your specialty. Use it. Zevin, you place charges at structural weak points as we go. If we need a quick exit, I want options. She looked at each of them. This isn't training. There are no safety protocols. No instructors stopping the exercise if someone gets hurt. You get injured, you either keep moving or you get left behind. Understood? 3 nods. Zevin's came last, reluctant, but it came. The station emerged from the darkness like a corpse floating in deep water. Lights flickered irregularly. Hull breaches vented atmosphere and frozen clouds. The docking bay was a mess of torn metal and emergency foam where something had clearly forced its way through reinforced doors. "That's not a good sign," Rake muttered, his cybernetic eyes zooming in on claw marks that cut through alloy like paper. "We're not here for good signs," Kira responded. "We're here for survivors. Suit up, full gear, power weapons to stand by, and remember, sound discipline. These things hunt by movement and noise." They disembarked in silence. The station's gravity hit immediately. Not stable, fluctuating like a heartbeat. One moment normal, the next crushing, then almost floating. Kira's enhanced physiology adapted faster than the others, but even she felt the strain. The interior was a nightmare. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Corridors that should have been clean and sterile were torn apart. Blood, both human and alien, decorated walls in abstract patterns. Bodies lay in pieces, scattered like discarded toys. Nessa took point, moving with the fluid grace of someone who'd learned to fight in variable gravity. Rake followed, his cybernetics interfacing with what remained of the station's systems. Zevin stayed close to Kira, hands shaking despite his obvious attempts at control. The first creature hit them on level 2. It came from above, using the fluctuating gravity to drop like a stone before arresting its fall with claws that punched through deck plating. The thing was massive, easily 3 meters long, armored carapace, too many eyes, a mouth that opened in 4 directions and dripped acid. Nessa moved before anyone else processed the threat. Her blade, made from compressed alloy mined from her homeworld, caught the creature under what might have been a jaw. The cut should have decapitated it. Instead, the blade stuck in armor too thick to penetrate fully. The creature screamed. The sound was worse than its appearance. Kira fired. Her weapon, designed for Deathworld combat, hit with enough force to crack bone and shatter stone. The creature's armor held for 2 shots. The third punched through. The fourth removed what passed for a head. It still took 6 seconds to stop moving. "Contact!" Rake shouted. His sensors lit up. Multiple signatures, converging. Kira made a decision. "Zevin, seal this corridor." "Bring it down, now!" For one terrible moment, she thought he'd freeze. Thought 6 months of evaluation hadn't been enough to overcome a lifetime of privilege and coddling. Thought she'd have to shoot him and complete the mission, a man down. Then he moved. His hands steady now, focused by training and necessity. He placed charges with professional precision. 30 seconds. "Move! They ran!" Gravity shifted. What had been down became sideways. Nessa adapted instantly using mag boots. Rake's cybernetics compensated. Zevin stumbled, caught himself, kept moving. Kira grabbed his collar, hauled him forward. Behind them, more creatures appeared. Shapes in the darkness. Hungry, relentless. The charges detonated. The corridor collapsed in a cascade of rock and twisted metal. The creatures screamed. Some died instantly. Others were trapped. One made it through, claws scrambling for purchase. Kira put 3 rounds in its center mass. It died angry. They kept moving. Level 3 brought more horrors, more bodies, more evidence that the researchers here had been playing with forces they couldn't control. Rake pulled data from a damaged terminal. What he found made his expression darken. "This wasn't an accident," he said quietly. "Someone released these things deliberately. There's a log here, encrypted, but I can crack it. Someone on the research team opened the containment protocols manually. Why?" Nessa asked. "Money. Always money. Black market for xenobiology specimens is insane. Some idiot thought they could steal a few samples, sell them, and retire rich." Kira felt rage bubble up. Cold, controlled, dangerous. They killed everyone here for profit. "Welcome to the universe," Rake said bitterly. They reached the safe room 40 minutes later. The door was intact but sealed from the inside. Kira activated her comm. "This is Rescue Team Voss. We're outside. Open the door." Silence for 5 seconds. Then a voice, weak and terrified. "How do we know you're real? How do we know you're not more of them? Because if we were, this door wouldn't stop us," Kira said flatly. "You have 30 seconds to open it or we leave you here." "Your choice." The door opened. 17 faces, hollow with fear and dehydration, stared out at them. Most were researchers, soft, unused to violence. 2 were security personnel who looked like they'd seen combat and survived only through luck. "Can you walk?" Kira asked. The lead researcher, a woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much, nodded. "Most of us. 3 are injured. They'll need support, then support them. We're leaving now. Stay quiet. Stay close. If you fall behind, you die here. Clear?" 17 nods. The trip back was worse. The creatures had learned, adapted. They didn't charge blindly anymore. They hunted with intelligence, coordinated, using the station's damaged systems against the rescue team. Gravity traps, corridors that vented atmosphere, ambushes from multiple angles. Nessa took wounds, deep cuts that would have killed someone less durable. She kept fighting. Rake's cybernetics sparked and failed twice. He rerouted power and continued. Zevin used his remaining charges to create barriers, buy time, keep the survivors moving, and Kira held the line. She fought like someone raised on a world where every day was survival. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Just brutal, efficient violence applied with surgical precision. The creatures learned to fear her. Started avoiding her, targeting weaker prey. Big mistake. When they finally reached the docking bay, the transport's automated defenses engaged. Heavy weapons tore through pursuing creatures. The survivors scrambled aboard. Nessa followed, bleeding but alive. Rake limped up the ramp, half his systems offline. Zevin stood at the ramp's edge, looking back at the station, at the hell they'd just survived. His face was different now, harder, aged. Move, Kira ordered. He looked at her. Thank you for not leaving me behind. I deserved it. After everything I said, everything I did, Kira considered. 6 months ago, she'd have hated him. Now she just saw another survivor. Someone who'd learned that the universe didn't care about your family name when things were trying to eat you. You placed those charges perfectly, she said. Saved lives. That's what matters. They lifted off 30 seconds later. The station receded into darkness. Behind them, the creatures screamed frustration into vacuum. Commander Thane was waiting when they docked. She looked over the team, counted survivors, reviewed the mission data, then she smiled. Congratulations, Cadet Voss. You passed. Welcome to the real war. Kira looked at her team. Nessa, already getting medical treatment. Rake, interfacing with technicians to repair his systems. Zevin, sitting alone but no longer broken, and she thought about the universe beyond. The threat's coming. The battle's ahead, her smile returned. That sharp, dangerous expression. Good, she said. I was getting bored anyway.